And welcome everyone. My name is Janeid Ortiz, and I am the Director of Partnership Marketing for Discover Puerto Rico. Thank you for joining us today. On today's industry update, you will hear from Discover Puerto Rico's executive leadership team as they walk you through the latest information, travel industry trends, and upcoming projects and activations. And before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's industry update will be translated simultaneously into Spanish. The slides used are available in Spanish on our industry portal, discoverpuertorico.com/industry, so you can download the presentation and follow along. In addition, this webinar is being recorded, and later this week you will receive a link so you can replay at your convenience. La presentación del día de hoy tendrá subtítulos o closed captions en español. Si usted desea activar la función de subtítulos en español, oprima el botón etiquetado Closed Caption en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Elija la opción que dice Show Subtitles para ver los subtítulos en español. Si desean ver el tracto completo de la traducción, pueden seleccionar la función que dice View Full Transcript. En este momento les aparecerá una pantalla con una pequeña encuesta. Por favor, seleccione su respuesta y déjenos saber si está utilizando o ha utilizado nuestro servicio de Closed Captions en español en nuestros seminarios web. La presentación que utilizaremos en el día de hoy está disponible en español y puede ser descargada desde nuestro portal de la industria discoverpuertorico.com/industry. Además, el seminario web del día de hoy está siendo grabado y más tarde esta semana recibirán un enlace para que puedan repasar el contenido a su conveniencia. Lastly, after the presentation, we will have time for a Q&A, but feel free to send your questions as we go. And you can do so by using the Q&A feature, which is the bubble labeled Q&A at the bottom of your screen. During today's industry update, you'll hear from our CEO, Brad Dean, Research and Analytics Director, Alicia Valentine, Chief Marketing Officer, Leah Chandler, our Chief Sales Officer, Ed Carey, and our Leisure Sales Director, Francisco Blanche. And now to get things started, I'll leave you with Discover Puerto Rico CEO, Mr. Brad Dean.
Saludos from your DMO, Discover Puerto Rico. We appreciate you taking time to join us today as we provide an overview of recent results, current activities, and future plans. Thus far, 2022 is proving to be another great year for our industry. Visitation and revenues are outpacing 2021, which proved to be the all-time record year for tourism in Puerto Rico. And with more people employed in leisure and hospitality than ever before in our history, it's clear that tourism in Puerto Rico is leading the recovery. Yet, despite this strong start to this year, the outlook for tourism is mixed, with a few encouraging signs offset by some very worrisome trends. Despite such strong labor numbers, most businesses report they simply cannot hire enough help. Airline deployments have exceeded prior years, yet airlines are having to cut capacity due to pilot shortages and drastic increases in the price of fuel. Demand for travel is high, yet inflation is prompting many travelers to reconsider travel or scale back on their plans. And interest in our island by meeting planners is growing, but the need periods of our local hotel partners have changed significantly. So amidst all of this uncertainty and the never-ending challenges, one thing remains clear. The crisis presents opportunity, and for us in Puerto Rico, capitalizing upon those opportunities requires that we continue to be responsive, innovative, and stay top of mind with consumers, meeting planners, and travel advisors, always seeking to differentiate ourselves from the competition. To accomplish this, we've leaned heavily into the rich, vibrant culture of Puerto Rico with our strategic brand positioning, Live Boricua. After extensive testing and analysis, we planted our flag, so to speak, in the authentic identity of our island and its extraordinary people. And so far, the results are very encouraging, and we've only begun to see the reach and diversity of this campaign. In addition to maintaining a consistent presence at dozens of trade shows and industry conferences, we've elevated our destination brand at several high-profile events, from a world-class food and wine festival and creative publicity activations to major industry events like IMEX, IPW, and the World Education Congress, to name just a few. Hosting Connect Marketplace was an extraordinary accomplishment for Puerto Rico, and we're proud to say that we will be hosting a number of other high-profile industry events in 2022 and 2023 that will enable us to continue positioning Puerto Rico as the premier leisure, business, and events destination in the Caribbean, a destination that is truly inclusive and welcoming to all travelers. At the same time, we've recruited an all-time record number of travel advisors to participate in our travel expert program, and the bookings from those travel advisors are impacting many properties throughout our entire island. We've refreshed our award-winning website and continue to expand our reach through high-performance marketing. Our team has hosted a non-stop parade of site visits and fam trips, including media, influencers, meeting planners, and travel advisors, while at the same time employing continuous outreach through local community forums and in-person on-site assistance through our La Idea marketing program designed to assist local small businesses. But we recognize it's not enough to simply be busy. We must also be impactful. So we remain focused on delivering positive results regardless of the circumstances we face. With that in mind, our new budget, which begins this Friday, July 1st, limits our spending of salaries and overheads to just 16% of the total budget, which of course means 84% will be dedicated to marketing, promotion, and sales. At Discover Puerto Rico, we believe that our efficiency helps ensure your profitability, so we will continue to be good stewards of your funds. And no matter what the rest of the year holds for us, you can count on the team at your DMO to continue adapting, responding, and innovating with a commitment to accountability, transparency, efficiency, and impact. It's now my pleasure to turn the presentation over to our Director of Research and Analytics, Alicia Valentine.
Thank you, Brad. I know it's only been 2 months since we provided an update, but things change so quickly. It seems like it's been much longer. But I'm happy to share what we're seeing, both in terms of results, forecasts, and consumer sentiment today. And when I'm consistently able to report numbers like these, it certainly makes the discussion a lot more pleasant. Though the year started slowly due to Omicron, lodging demand has been strong since mid-February. March and April were especially strong, averaging a 26% increase from last year. And while there was a bit of a slowdown in May, which I'll address in a minute, demand last month was still 9% higher than a year ago, which was the previous high. So overall, year-to-date demand is 28% higher than in 2021. Also encouraging is that while we had been seeing declines in hotel demand with the growing rental market, the last time we've seen this much hotel demand was in 2017, when rentals made up just 13% of the market. So with increasing demand, properties have been able to push rates higher. Every month since April 2021 has set monthly records for rates, with year-to-date average rate of $296 for hotels. This is 29% higher than a year ago and 24% higher than the previous high in 2019. However, some of the sentiment data I'll share with you shortly has consumers pushing back on higher rates. And while a year ago, the difference between hotel and rental rates was only 9%, that has now widened to 20%. With this, I anticipate we'll start seeing hotel rates leveling off as consumers change behavior because of inflation. But for now, that record demand and rates, they're generating skyrocketing revenues. Though hotel demand is 17.5% lower than the record high in 2015, rates are 40% higher. So even hotel revenue is 16% above that previous year-to-date high in 2015. And as these monthly numbers come in, I am continuously checking to see if there's a problem with the data because the numbers just don't seem like they could possibly be real, but they are. Total lodging revenues are running 56% higher than a year ago. And that was the year we generated a record-setting nearly $100 million in lodging tax collections. So record year-to-date numbers are great, but what's the rest of the year look like? Well, we can start from the place that last year's Q3 was a real anomaly. We had a huge surge in summer bookings starting in March 2021 after vaccines became readily available, a negative test was no longer required for entry, and US consumers had a third round of stimulus payments deposited into their bank accounts. And Discover Puerto Rico was investing significantly more in paid media, with resources available from both the CARES Act and from CDBG-DR. So though additional federal funds have been made available through the American Rescue Plan this year, it's still not at the level from 2021. The year-to-date media investment is actually 8% lower than a year ago. So right now, Q3 is booking 8.5% lower for hotels and 18% lower than rentals than a year ago. But this is still a third higher than the same period in 2019. Again, the bookings that were filling the books in the spring of 2021 for Q3 were an anomaly that would not be anticipated to be replicated. But even so, Q4 hotel and rental bookings are ahead of the same period a year ago and well ahead of 2019. We know that most of our competitive set didn't see this same kind of recovery in 2021. We were uniquely positioned as a domestic destination for our consumer base and benefited considerably from international markets either being closed or requiring testing to return to the US. And we know that competitive position is now gone. So to have an equitable review of how we're performing against this comp set, we really have to look at the current booking pace compared to 2019. And you can see that Puerto Rico is the only destination that is seeing significant gains in both the rental and hotel market through the remainder of the year when compared to 3 years ago. So though that Q3 pace is not where we were a year ago, we have to keep in mind what a unique position we were in. And of course, our booking pace against the Caribbean competitors isn't very surprising, given the US just lifted re-entry testing requirements for international destinations a couple of weeks ago. Consumers were still hesitant to book when they thought they might get stuck somewhere. But this is occupancy, hotel occupancy comparison shows us clearly how much Puerto Rico has been able to take advantage of that unique position with the mainland market. Pre-pandemic, our occupancy was pretty closely aligned with the rest of the region. And we can see how we were able to, we were all really in the same boat in the start of the pandemic in Q2 of 2021, but Puerto Rico quickly capitalized on the destination's reopening. And while the rest of the Caribbean has continued to see a slow uptick in occupancy, ours has really been tied to COVID variants and typical seasonality. However, to close this quarter, we have again pulled away from the rest of the competitors. But what about how we're performing against competitors for whom we didn't enjoy such a unique position? For that, we can look at overall hotel occupancy against Florida markets, a destination that consistently outperformed us pre-COVID. Obviously, with a significant drive market, they didn't lose nearly as much business at the start of the pandemic. But we were able to have such a strong comeback that we outperformed them for the first time ever in Q2 of 2021. And have done so for 3 of the last 5 quarters. And it's not just unique to Florida. Overall, the US Travel Association reports that year-to-date travel spending across the country remains 5% off 2019 levels. For that same period, though, Puerto Rico's visitor spending is 10% higher than 3 years ago. And there are a handful of states that are outperforming us when it comes to spending against 2019, but most of those states, Maine, Vermont, Montana, and Idaho, have a far smaller economic impact from the industry. But based off of what we've seen in the first 5 months of this year and our current pace, tourism economics is forecasting a significant increase in non-resident visitor spending for the year. We recently commissioned a long-range forecast with the leaders in economic data in the industry. And they've provided 3 potential scenarios as to what might happen based off of economic conditions. So on the far left here, you'll see our non-resident visitor volume and spending that Tourism Economics determined for 2021. And the 3 indicators to the right are potential forecasts based off conditions remaining similar to current circumstances or considerations for downturns or even upticks in the economy. But even this downside forecast anticipates a 21% increase in visitor spending for the year, primarily from increases in lodging rates that we've seen year to date. But the increases in non-resident visitor volume are really tied to the return of the cruise industry. We know that in 2019, cruise made up nearly a third of our travel and 7% of spending. So while we won't be back to those levels, this certainly gets us closer. And we're considering the downside forecast a win and the more likely scenario given economic conditions. Of course, inflation is at its highest level in 40 years, making consumers hesitant to spend on discretionary goods and services like travel. And add to that the most recent rate increase by the Fed, putting travel on credit cards just got even more expensive for consumers. So now we've got consumers saying increased prices on travel have made them deal breakers and they aren't willing to travel. In the June State of the American Traveler from our partners at Destination Analysts, 30% indicate they've canceled a planned trip because of rising prices. And more than a third are now saying that airfares have been far too expensive and are now a deal breaker to travel, with a quarter of consumers saying that lodging prices have become too expensive. However, we had a similar number in 2021 saying they weren't willing to get on an airplane because of COVID, and we had a record-breaking year. So Destination Analyst has been tracking consumer interest in leisure travel throughout COVID. And while, yes, there has been a considerable drop in interest in the most recent tracking, the drop you'll see to the far right on excitement to travel, it's still at the level that we were seeing in July of 2021. And that was the month that we had the highest lodging demand on record. So while economic conditions and consumer sentiment about spending are certainly concerning, the booking pace and comparisons as to what this means from past performance makes us pretty optimistic for the rest of 2022. I'm always happy to answer questions either in the Q&A box or offline. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Marketing Officer Leah Chandler.
Great. Thanks so much, Alicia. There's obviously a lot to digest there, but let's talk for a minute about creative. In May, we launched our newest advertising campaign, Live Boricua. After more than 2 years of multiple creative shifts to account for earthquakes and, of course, then the pandemic, we're refocusing on a brand campaign to elevate awareness and, of course, drive visitation. Live Boricua was developed to go beyond showing people what Puerto Rico offers visitors and instead builds on who Puerto Rico is as a state of mind, as a lifestyle, and as a cultural experience. We established 5 strategic imperatives to measure our success: build lasting brand equity, expanding our unique and ownable brand position, entirely distinct from product-oriented or one-off campaigns. This campaign is about imprinting an idea of what Puerto Rico means to the current and the emerging traveler. Second, the campaign must drive more than awareness, also consideration and intent to travel. The campaign has to differentiate Puerto Rico from its traditional competitive set. It has to spark curiosity with our audiences and encourage them to ask more from the travel they're taking. And of course, for the long-term positioning of the brand, we will establish leadership within the travel category from this campaign. Our brand effort has broad and long-term objectives focused on building equity with key markets and audiences over time. We've developed 2 expressions of our campaign. They're both rooted in the same positioning. The difference comes down to the market maturity and their level of awareness of Puerto Rico. Live Boricua 1.0, as we're calling it, places a greater emphasis on experience for those who are less familiar with Puerto Rico, while Live Boricua 2.0 places a greater emphasis on our culture for those who already know us fairly well. To inform the creative process and campaign launch, Discover Puerto Rico conducted extensive research across the country with 16 focus groups in 7 mainland cities, as well as in San Juan. We received feedback from 1,162 consumers, inclusive of our target audience, diaspora, and local residents. Additionally, about 300 Puerto Ricans were central to the creative process, as well as Puerto Rican tastemakers and representatives from the local tourism industry. But research and analysis does not stop there. We continue to monitor the campaign, and we're reporting and optimizing its performance as we move forward. We have executed a coordinated and integrated rollout across all of our channels. Hopefully you're seeing some of it. From Puerto Rico's first national cable broadcast to print, paid digital, social, and updated website, as Brad mentioned, campaign landing page, activations, events, trade shows, everything is working together to amplify the campaign holistically. And in terms of owned media, we adapted our website content to fully embrace Live Boricua. You'll find a dedicated landing page as a primary component of navigation that will educate and inspire travelers to learn more. We're going to share 2 TV spots with you next. 2 additional TV spots are being finalized this week and will be rotated into media beginning July 8th.
In Puerto Rico, we call ourselves Boricua. We are proud, passionate, and full of life. On our island, adventure finds you. Strangers aren't strangers for long. The size of the audience doesn't change the beauty of the music. And we celebrate every last ray of sun.
We also are showing here a couple of sample print ads. Here's the first one, and then here's a second one that we wanted to share. And I think we have a final one that we're sharing today. There are many other versions, but of course we don't have time to share them in this presentation. And then I think we have a version of one of our digital banners that will hopefully play through. Again, I'm not sure if they're playing, or this one looks like it maybe is static. We have a second execution as well. But hopefully you get a sense from seeing these visuals how the campaign is beginning to roll out. Ultimately, Live Boricua is an immersive feeling and a frame of mind that is core to the DNA of the Puerto Rico experience and lifestyle. But our tourism product is expansive, and the campaign umbrella must be versatile enough to encompass experience that at first glance may not be viewed as inherently Boricua. We're confident the campaign works in each facet of the island tourism verticals, and so we're going to share a few of those extensions today. These extensions include the Convention Center and Distrito T-Mobile, which you see here. We have high-end culinary experiences in this version that says art doesn't only hang on walls, and a version that represents luxury lodging. We've also developed a strong positioning for meetings and conventions. So as you see here, the payoff line is make your meeting Boricua. And I think we have one final example from MICE. And we're going to continue to share more iterations of the campaign as it evolves. And in our August industry update, we'll also be keen to share early results that are related to the campaign performance. In earned media, we continue pitching efforts for Live Boricua and have so far garnered over 206.8 million impressions. To continue amplification and support of our campaign, we've created specialized mailers that will be sent to diaspora media and influencers. And as you may remember, last year, the DMO attended the Food and Wine Classic in Aspen for the first time to great success. We're happy to announce that we returned for the second year earlier this month. We had a premier booth space in the Grand Tasting Pavilion where media, industry members, and the public stopped by for small plates and rum cocktails. Throughout the weekend, we shared the taste of Puerto Rico with more than 5,000 people. We partnered with Chef Mario Pagan and his team to create authentic Puerto Rican food. And similar to last year, we hosted an exclusive event for media to learn more about the destination. And this year, we got to share our Live Boricua campaign. We hosted outlets like CNN, Refinery 29, and Aspen in Espanol, continuing to build those solid relationships with key media partners. We also attended and had a booth at IPW in Orlando, June 4th through the 8th. Our team met with 53 journalists from 15 countries, including the US, Canada, Mexico, and the UK on the exhibit floor and also during the media marketplace. To bring a bit of Puerto Rico to the attendees, for the first time ever, we delivered breakfast to 25 top-tier media, including Afar, Matador Network, and Global Traveler. The box included an empanadilla, guava bread, a cheese quesito, and a mocha cookie from the Puerto Rican bakery Cafe Don Juan's first mainland location in Orlando, along with a video brochure to share the Live Boricua campaign. To sustain momentum in the final months of San Juan's 500th anniversary celebrations, we also created a unique mailer to generate earned and social coverage, increase consideration, ultimately drive bookings for the upcoming months. We wanted to play up the difference between San Juan's rich history and its modern day appeal by creating a mailer that reflected that same contrast, a Viewmaster self-guided tour of the most Instagrammable spots in the city. Our social media team identified real images shared on Instagram by visitors, and with permission, we used them to create Viewmasters, each with 2 reels of images that were sent to prominent journalists and influencers in the US. And of course, we're continuing that steady drumbeat of media and influencer engagement in all of our key markets, and we're right now gearing up for an upcoming event in New York. We partnered with the iconic Choco Bar Cortez at their new Bronx location to host media and influencers in mid-July. We're also exploring additional events throughout the rest of the year in key target markets like Boston, Nashville, and Tampa. We hosted media from Harper's Bazaar and Little Things to explore the island's romance offerings and learn about the most swoon-worthy spots. The trip allowed the media to experience Puerto Rico as the perfect spot for a romantic getaway, and also destination weddings. We've also recently hosted media from Instinct Magazine, Gay Cities, and Passport to experience San Juan from the lens of queer travelers and immerse themselves in a variety of activities and attractions over the 3-night trip. And as we close the fiscal year, we hosted one final trip for Noche de San Juan. Journalists from top outlets like Trip Savvy, Go Nomad, and Nuevo Herald attended this iconic celebration. The trip allowed for media to experience Noche de San Juan and truly celebrate like a local. And we're getting ready to share part of our new beer strategy. We recently hosted a roundtable discussion with the brewery community earlier this week, where we drew insights to strategically promote the growing craft beer sector. More than 22 brewers attended, and during the discussion, we forged relationships with top brewers and have begun initiating tactics that are going to promote experiences in this niche space. For the upcoming weeks, you're going to see planning around media activations to leverage National Pina Colada Day in July, National Rum Month in August, and of course, Labor Day. Digital media transitioned to the Live Boricua campaign in early May. We're continuing to see higher video completions with our new art markets as we introduce Puerto Rico into their consideration sets. We're also seeing strong signs of intent to travel with higher display and native engagements and search click-throughs with core programming. Traditional media launched on May 3rd as well, with coverage across the footprint of our core markets, while ARP gave us a national footprint for the first time. Spot TV was leveraged in our key markets and was complemented by our OTT strategy. National addressable cable also launched in May, bringing Discover Puerto Rico to national cable for the first time ever, already delivering more than 12 million impressions. And that national addressable cable TV launched, airing not only the 30-second spot, but also Discover Puerto Rico is the first travel advertiser ever to leverage the pause ad with DirecTV. When a consumer is viewing a program and pauses it, DirecTV can serve a pause ad to specific households that we want to target. The pause ad was developed to overtake the screen and act as a retargeting supplement to the commercial spots that we're airing. May was also the launch of the LGBTQ+ paid media campaign with print and digital coverage. Again, the first time ever we've done a paid campaign against LGBTQ+. Ongoing creative developments in progress and future placements and endemic LGBTQ+ partners will launch throughout the calendar year. So this is an ongoing effort. And make sure you're following Discover Puerto Rico on all of our social channels, but especially Instagram, to see our latest ASMR Live Boricua video series featuring Puerto Rican partners in the tourism industry with a short ASMR format. The first video of the Puerto Rican coconut seller garnered nearly 33,000 views within the first 24 hours of being published. Upcoming features include a bomba dancer, a piragüero, a piñones cook, and a hospitality associate. Now, website sessions are down slightly month over month, but this is expected with the shift in media strategy that we're entering new markets, as it's going to take longer to convert those consumers into website visitors. Organic traffic is also down month over month as the travel industry loses importance, as travelers are just less concerned about those health and safety protocols. So this is also expected to continue. In May, we launched 3 new landing pages dedicated to the Live Boricua campaign. One is a campaign landing page to drive paid advertising to. One is a page for earned media efforts, and another is for our local industry. And to date, we've already had over 126,000 page views. Brad mentioned the Connect Spring Marketplace, which brought over 1,700 attendees, including 700 meeting and event planners, to our destination May 22nd through the 24th. Our team immersed attendees in the culture of our island during sponsored events, which took place at Distrito T-Mobile, Paseo de la Princesa, and attendees enjoyed authentic food, cocktails, music, and entertainment for 2.5 days, and many even extended their time pre and post event. One of the great stats we received from Connect is that 64% of those attendees were first-time visitors to Puerto Rico. We secured numerous marketing opportunities at MPI World Education Congress this past week, including sponsorship of the Women in Leadership Education session, the conference app, the up-and-coming Walk of Fame, and we featured a robust coffee activation at our booth. Our team also met, of course, with meeting planners during the hosted buyer event. And finally, we've also developed new assets for the sports market. So this campaign is going to assist our sports sales team with sponsorship, advertising, and events. And again, you'll continue to see these Live Boricua extensions roll out in the coming months. And with that, I'm happy to pass the presentation to our Chief Sales Officer, Ed Carey.
Well, thanks a lot, Leah, and good morning, everyone. I know that obviously we've been speaking quite a bit about Connect over the last several months, but rest assured that we've maintained a relentless presence in the marketplace as well. You know, with over 25 trade shows and events happening in April and May alone, some of the highlights include IMEX in Frankfurt, Germany, where we were joined by 10 of our hoteliers and DMCs, as well as a significant activation, as Leah mentioned, at the MPI World Education Conference, where we were able to highlight the Meet Boricua campaign. And we also continued on our 46-city roadshow calendar with our Southeast Roadshow, which hosted events in Tampa, Charlotte, and Atlanta. And the timing of these events couldn't be any better, because as of last week, literally June 23rd, the buyers that we've been monitoring for the last 2 years via the Pulse survey with North Star meetings are as active as ever. So the period of rebooking canceled or postponed events is coming to an end, and new bookings and events are now on the rise. However, there is a very real concern over the rising costs associated with the planning of meeting events and events. Airfares have risen, we've heard, substantially, as I'm sure you've all witnessed firsthand, and food and beverage prices are substantially higher than pre-COVID levels. So we must place extra emphasis on listening with empathy to the concerns of the planner today if we expect to keep them as buyers for the future. As you see here, nearly 80% of our customers are very concerned about the current cost of doing business. Planners are having a difficult time finding rates and space, especially in resort destinations, and it will eventually scare many of them away from us if we don't offer them options for future dates or revised patterns. And more than ever, the ongoing messaging and engagement by DMOs, by Discover Puerto Rico and others, has resulted in a high degree of trust in what they're hearing from us about our respective destinations. So we will obviously continue to use this credibility to drive our message in the marketplace. And in terms of production, the new lead room nights that have been generated from the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July, through mid-June, so just about a full year, are over 100% higher than where they were in the 2019-2020 fiscal year. And we're also really encouraged to see that new booked room nights are well over 126,000 rooms, which is 17% higher than that same period in 2019-2020. And the biggest producers of lead demand for the 11 months ending May of 2022 were finance and insurance, high tech, health and medical, education, and manufacturing, with the West Coast, Midwest, and Southeast regions of the US as the top 3 most productive. However, when it comes to confirmed business for the same time period, sports takes the lead, followed by health and medical, finance and insurance, education, and then arts and entertainment. And the Southeast, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic regions are the most active bookers. Now, as we point out every month, the pipeline of potential room nights is strong. We're now at well over 500,000 room nights in our of potential business. And lastly, we remain very engaged and active in all markets and have shared our calendar with your teams. So between now and the next time we meet, we will have produced or attended 30 plus events in every major region of the US, as well as Canada and Mexico as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francisco Blanch for an update on our leisure missions.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning, everyone. We see how summer rebounds in June after a weaker May, consistent with normal year seasonality and still with a very short booking window. We expect June to further strengthen and end close to April's results. In this graph, we see the return to normal years as we near the end of the current fiscal year. That is the green line. And then this is the first report on results from the Loyalty Awards program we launched in December of 2021 for the Puerto Rico Travel Expert program. Not only does it show a great start, it clearly demonstrates the Puerto Rico Travel Expert courses entice advisors to book not only metro area hotels, but also paradores and independent properties in all regions of the island. Puerto Rico Travel Expert enrollments continue to grow thanks to our ongoing efforts to educate the advisor sales force. And clearly, the percentage of participation in all regions continues to gain strength. As we can see, overall independent hotels, small inns, and paradores continue to gain prominence in all leisure booking channels. And as you can see, we continue to cover important events and activations in both domestic and international markets. And now I leave you with Janet Ortiz, Director of Partnership Marketing for Discover Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much, Francisco, and the executive leadership team for providing such great information and insights. We do have some questions on the Q&A box, and we want to try to answer as many questions as we can in the time that we have left. So before we get started, I want to let you know that we will not be able to offer the translation feature during the Q&A session. So this portion will be in English only. Also, and as I mentioned earlier, the webinar is being recorded. So later this week, you will receive a link to a recording so that you can replay it at your convenience or share it with colleagues who are not able to tune in today. If you have questions or need any additional information after the webinar, please send us a message at the email address on the screen. We will be happy to assist you. A nuestros amigos que están utilizando nuestro servicio de traducción, no vamos a poder ofrecer la función de subtítulos en esta sección, así que la misma será solo en inglés. También, como mencioné antes, este seminario web está siendo grabado y más tarde esta semana les haremos llegar el enlace con la grabación para que puedan repasar el contenido a su conveniencia o compartirlo con algún colega que no haya podido estar presente en el día de hoy. Y si al finalizar este seminario web tienen preguntas o necesitan información adicional, pueden enviar un correo electrónico a la dirección que ven en pantalla y con mucho gusto les asistiremos. So let's get started. The first question that we have, is there a graph that displays in which area of the island is the highest hotel occupation rate, meaning north, east, south, or west side of the island? And I will pass that over to our Director of Research and Analytics, Alicia Valentine.
Thanks, Janine. So a couple of issues going on here in terms of occupancy by region. You may know Discover Puerto Rico utilizes STR as our hotel data reporting service in order to have the most timely data and an equitable review against our competitors. It's really the industry standard for hotel occupancy. But that being said, they are not able to break down hotel occupancy by region, just given the number of properties available. However, the PRTC does report occupancy by region, but what we do have available is occupancy not only by region, but by individual municipality concerning independent rentals. And we also monitor geolocation. So we're able to see how consumers move around the island. So not only where they're arriving from, but then what they're doing once they're here. And certainly throughout the pandemic, there has been a move outside of metro areas, not just in Puerto Rico, but with travel in general. We did especially see increases in visitation to the east and the west. Certainly in terms of volume, the metro still continues to get the most overall volume, but lots of shifts to regions outside of the metro area since the start of the pandemic. So Discover Puerto Rico is certainly able to provide custom reporting in terms of what's happening in your individual municipality, and I'm always happy to take those questions. But for hotel data related to regional occupancy, the PRTC would have that available.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We have a second question. Are the visitors choosing Puerto Rico as their vacation destination coming from United States? Is there a plan to promote the island on international grounds, such as Central and South America and Europe? Our Chief Marketing Officer, Leah Chandler, can answer that for us.
Sure. Thanks, Janine. And I'll just kick it off, but then I'll pass it over to Francisco, who can share a little bit about our leisure sales strategy and some of our recent leisure co-ops. The short answer is yes, we are promoting internationally, but it's important to keep in mind only about 6% of our visitors come from international markets. And that's as recent as 2021 data that shows 94% of our visitation is coming from those domestic mainland markets. So you can imagine the lion's share of our marketing and communications budget is going into those domestic US markets. But we do keep a steady drumbeat in our core international markets, which are largely driven by where we have direct air access. So today, you're going to find that being in Spain, Germany, Canada, Colombia, and we also have as emerging markets, the UK and Mexico. And those are markets where we see strong potential for air service to be added in the not too distant future, hopefully. So we are seeding those markets with Discover Puerto Rico messaging. We are mostly focused on earned media and trade marketing and campaigns in those markets. So you're not going to see heavy consumer campaigns. We just today don't have the budget for it. But we do partner with Brand USA, and they are the destination marketing organization for the US. And through strategic co-ops with Brand USA, we're able to leverage their footprint in some of these markets to help extend our dollars. But today it's mostly trade focused as well as earned media. We'd love to see that grow in the future. But again, a lot of that is going to be dependent on where we're able to generate additional demand and airlift. Francisco, do you want to build on that from a trade perspective, leisure perspective?
Yes, Leah, thank you. We are focusing, as Leah mentioned, on those markets where we have direct lift primarily. And for that, we've been covering Colombia. We've been already in a couple of trips to Mexico. We've covered also Spain. We have attended, as Leah said, Brands USA events in the UK, and we will be also covering Frankfurt. Ed Carey also mentioned the MICE team was recently in Europe promoting as well with about 10 of our stakeholders and hotels. And we work very closely with the hotels and the DMCs/receptive companies in Puerto Rico, because they are the ones that at the end of the day get to make the effort of doing all the contracting and receive all the requests as well for the services. So we do maintain a strong presence as possible, considering the traffic that we get currently. Is there another question?
Yes, I'll take that. Thank you, Leah and Francisco, so much for chiming in. We have another question. Has Discover Puerto Rico teamed up or thought of teaming up with a tour bus company to coordinate a road trip throughout the island? This way we could promote local tourism and motivate visitors to come. It could be coordinated to take place by sections. One day could be Discover Puerto Rico takes you to the south, then another day visit the north side of the island with Discover Puerto Rico, and maybe include some influencers to motivate people to go on the trip, because Boricuas do love going on giras, and that is absolutely true. I'm going to pass that question over to our CEO, Brad Dean.
Yeah, the dispersion of visitors throughout the island is obviously very, very important to all of us. And as you've seen today and in any previous presentation by Discover Puerto Rico, a big part of our planning is to make sure that we're effectively promoting the entire island. That includes all 78 municipalities. And when it comes to hosting FAMS trips and media influencer trips like the big mega FAM we just hosted, we always try as best we can to make sure that the entire island is represented. So in doing that, we work closely with tour operators and transportation companies accordingly. Now, having said that, I think it's important to recognize that the question really gets into product development, and that by law is the responsibility of the Puerto Rico Tourism Company. And so we're very clear to stay within the law. The law was created to avoid duplication between the tourism company and the DMO. So when it comes to things like product development, we really defer to the tourism company. Our role is to promote what's available. So in terms of developing new tours, it really falls within the tourism company, and it's our job to promote what's available. Now, having said that, anytime a business is offering tours that are of interest to tourists, to visitors, then we'll certainly be promoting that. And for example, our Director of Leisure Sales, Francisco Blanch, has recently been working with some companies that are interested in creating those kinds of tours. It's not our responsibility to create those, but we will actively promote those. So Francisco, maybe you could share some insights as to what you've been looking at helping promote and sell that may come to the island soon.
Thank you, Brad. As you mentioned, we stay within the law. However, we've been approached by Colette Tours and by Talk Tours, who are very well-known coach tour companies. They have scheduled departures and they do different routes throughout the world. And then there is a company called City Tours as well. They specialize in Spanish-speaking coach tours. And those companies have expressed an interest in probably promoting or creating a route which will make several stops throughout the island. So in short, the answer is yes, we are definitely aware of that possibility, and we are definitely receptive to that possibility. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad and Francisco. And our next question, I just started a new coffee shop, surf shop at Maria's Beach in Rincon. How can you help me promote my business? First of all, congratulations on that. That is awesome. We always get really happy with people opening new businesses. Discover Puerto Rico was created not just to be Puerto Rico's marketing agency, so to speak, but also to promote the island's small and medium businesses. So it's great that you asked that, because that is the core also of what we so passionately do. And we have several options for our businesses to have visibility in front of the potential visitor. Starting with our website, we do offer free listings for all of the businesses where you can feature business hours, any events, your description, photos, videos, links to your social media. We also have articles on our website, which can include some of the businesses on the island. So definitely there's a lot of ways that we can help you. We also have an image gallery with over 17,000 images that we can share with you and provide access for that. So if you want to explore that further, you can certainly send us an email and we can put information in the box for you. It would be website at discoverpuertorico.com. And also we have launched La Idea, which is the island's digital education academy. And now with that, we're able to help more businesses on the island by making sure that they have presence in the digital ecosystem with Google and Yelp and Travel Advisor. And we make sure that a digital guru can guide you into having that presence. So if you're interested in participating in that, you can also send us an email and we'll put the information in the box for you as well. And the next question, now that the other islands in the Caribbean are fully open, what is the leisure strategy to keep a fair share and continue the pace that we have gained in rates and demand? And to answer that question, I will pass that over to Brad Dean.
Yeah, and I'm going to invite other members of our team to join in, because this is a really, really important question, I think, for all businesses throughout the island. Clearly, a lot has changed over the last, not just 12 months, but 12 days and 12 weeks. This is a constantly changing dynamic environment, and it is certainly much, much more competitive today than it was a year ago, not only because the borders are now open, we're also seeing other states and destinations that have increased their budgets, when ironically, as much as this might be a surprise to many of our stakeholders, we're actually investing less today than we were a year ago. A year ago, we had the benefit of the CARES funds and the CDBG disaster recovery funds, which boosted our budget. So today we're actually spending a little bit less. Our competition is spending more. The price of media has increased. It's more competitive. So I think this question is absolutely imperative to all of us, because this is what's really driving much of our strategy. And hopefully a lot of what you've heard today helps to answer that question. The first thing is we have to differentiate ourselves. So one of the reasons that our team has worked so diligently to develop this very, very comprehensive, but very intricate, and we think potentially significant strategy, Live Boricua, is to help differentiate Puerto Rico at this time when travelers are looking for something different and behaving very differently. We're also elevating ourselves, not just in the core markets, but in new markets. So we've worked very closely with the Puerto Rico Tourism Company, with Aerostar, and also our airline partners to make sure that where there's potential new air service or emerging markets that could potentially deliver new market service to us, that we're seeding those markets. Now, to be clear, the responsibility for cruise line development and air service development lies with the Puerto Rico Tourism Company, but it's our job to fill those planes. So we've expanded our marketing into markets that we would not have had a strong presence in before, that's allowing us to introduce the brand to new visitors and hopefully convince airline partners to bring more traffic to the island, not just in 2022, but in 2023 and beyond. We've also added a number of new leisure co-ops, which are helping impact the island today. And we mentioned earlier the Puerto Rico Travel Expert Program. That's not just an effort to educate and influence travel advisors. We're actually seeing bookings, I think, in over 50 hotels in just the first few months of this year. So everything that we're doing in terms of positioning the brand, in terms of actively marketing the island digitally and otherwise, in terms of activations, publicity, public relations, and our leisure sales are all designed to elevate Puerto Rico above the competition, knowing that while we're spending a little less and it's more competitive, we have a tremendous value proposition. And so really your question leads to the entire strategy that we've articulated and are outlaying this year, and that is we can't just rest upon our past success. We've got to build upon that to continue to expand our market share and our reach and grow not only domestic visitation, but where possible, international visitation as well. I'd love to invite Leah Chandler, our Chief Marketing Officer, and then our Director of Leisure Sales, Francisco Blanche, to fill in any gaps there and offer their perspective on what may be one of the most important questions that anybody could be asking today.
Thank you, Brad. I think you've said it all. Anything I say would be redundant. So, absolutely.
And I was going to echo, as usual, following Brad doesn't leave me much to share because you nailed it. Those were definitely the points I would have hit on. The two main things I would just continue to emphasize is differentiation and agility. The differentiation piece, Brad hit the nail on the head with Live Boricua. We heard it over and over. And again, in focus groups, we had consumers referencing Pura Vida, Costa Rica's longstanding brand position. And we think Live Boricua can be that for Puerto Rico, that really sets us apart from the competition and becomes a call to action for consumers. The other piece is agility. And hopefully you've seen the DMO activate against many crises in the past few years, and our ability to anticipate what's coming up. And Alicia shared so much great data today, which we are ingesting every single day. And our agency partners, along with our internal team, are developing plans and optimizing plans to execute against these changing economic conditions that we're up against. And that agility is going to help keep us ahead of the competition, as it has for the last few years.
Leah, I just
Along
wanted to add
those same
something
lines, I
real
would also
briefly.
point out the efforts to grow meetings and convention business helps to create compression, which is going to benefit those small properties that don't necessarily host meetings and conventions, but it makes it a little less competitive. And we're actually testing right now an incentive program to see if we can convince meeting and convention attendees to actually return for a vacation later this year. We don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try that just to see if we can actually create more visitation for leisure out of the meetings and conventions. Ed, would you like to comment maybe on how all of this comes together through meetings to help impact leisure as well?
Yeah, well, first, just to mention, just to answer that question, Brad, yes. And many times we're finding that individuals who return to the island on vacation with their families first experience the destination by attending a meeting in Puerto Rico. They loved what they experienced, and they decided they were coming back with their families. But I wanted to get back to something I think is a little bit more practical approach to that about the competition. We know we have done well in 2021, and some of that demand is not going to be the same because of the other destinations that are now open. And our availability for the next 2 years for group is a bit challenged. So it's sometimes easy for us as salespeople to say we just don't have it and move on. And I think that's not the right approach right now. I think when we have a customer approaching us who and we do not have the space or availability for them, we have to ask those questions. Can we talk about next year? Can we talk about a different pattern? Can you move to the summer months? Something to keep them engaged, because if we keep saying no, we don't have it to them, they're going to stop calling us, and then the competition is going to run all over us. So, I know that's probably something that you all are very well aware of, but I know that we reiterate it to every one of our salespeople every day.
Thank you so much, Brad, Leah, Francisco, and Ed, for tackling that question. And this is all the time that we have. So thank you all for joining us today. And if you have not registered to our industry portal or to receive our weekly newsletter and weekly research dashboard, please head over to discoverpuertorico.com/industry to do so. And if you need assistance with the sign-up process, please reach out to us and our digital team will assist you. Also, save the date for next industry update in August 18th. An email with information will be hitting your inbox soon. Once again, thank you so much. Have a great day. See you soon. Hasta pronto.